Hello and welcome to We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP U.S. Government and Politics program in collaboration with Nauset's video production class. Next week, President Trump travels to Singapore to take part in a much-anticipated summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. It will be the first time a sitting U.S. president has met with the leader of North Korea. This on-again, off-again summit comes after a tense year of military and diplomatic exchanges between the two nations. What will the two men discuss in Singapore? What does the United States want from North Korea, and what does it hope to gain? And what about North Korea? What is Kim Jong-un looking to accomplish at the summit, and is he willing to negotiate away his growing nuclear arsenal? These are just a few of the questions we will be discussing over the next 30 minutes. I am your guest host, Francesca Galazzi, a veteran of the AP Government program and a student at Nauset High School. Just for the record, opinions expressed here belong to the panelists and are not the views of Nauset Regional High School or the Nauset Regional School District. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a special email address for the program today. Please feel free to email us your thoughts and suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our government classroom. Now, let's meet the panel.
I'm Natalie Sweeney.
I'm Paisley Gavin.
I'm Talk Deco.
I'm Safara Bricker.
I'm Sam Carpenter.
And I'm Tony Young.
So let's just jump right into discussion. What will the two leaders discuss in Singapore?
I think that's a really important question. To be honest, I'm not too sure about it because it's kind of really surprising that this all of a sudden happened, because I feel like a couple months ago none of us saw this coming. And I think it's a really important summit, and it's going to be really tricky to get around denuclearization because I think that's the main point. And I think that bottom line is both Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un just want to keep their people safe. I think Kim Jong-un has had a change of mind. I'm not exactly sure from where, but I think it's really important that we take a lot of care about this topic, especially at the summit.
Yeah, I think the U.S.'s main goal is to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, because they have been a really huge threat to their people, to the South Koreans, the Japanese, and the entire world. And so I think our main goal is denuclearization, but it's how we can negotiate that at the summit, and if we need to tread lightly, because Kim Jong-un has been known to not be the best leader. He has executed a lot of people, including his half-brother and his uncle. So this his change of mind is kind of surprising, and to me it doesn't really make sense why all of a sudden he's created these nuclear weapons and all of a sudden he's just decided to give them up. And I think it's because he wants to do what's best for his people, and he realizes that his people don't have a great standard of living, and he wants to improve his economy and become a better nation that's more incorporated with the rest of the world.
I almost wonder if this is just kind of a strategic move on Kim Jong-un's part, because definitely the elephant in the room for this upcoming summit is going to be the denuclearization. But I think Kim Jong-un's #1 priority is the safety of his people, but also his safety. Historically, I know in Libya, they denuclearized and their leader was brutally killed. After that, I think his main goal here is how can he stay alive and how can he protect his country. I almost wonder if he started on the nuclear weapons just to kind of, get his foot in the door, be someone that people worry about, so that now he can go into negotiations. So I think even if the U.S. wants denuclearization, I think North Korea would be willing to do that if their safety is guaranteed.
Yeah. And our President Trump has promised North Korea a lifestyle such as South Korea, which would erase things like hunger and poverty. But that's just the question in this is, can Trump fulfill that? Because people behind him, like Mike Pompeo, they're not willing to aid him in this belief unless the denuclearization happens. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in Washington are just think that Kim Jong-un is evil and he needs to be taken out of power. But that's kind of a tricky path to follow, because you're not really sure what would happen if he was taken out of power and who would replace him? Would they be worse or better than him? And he's having this, he is willing right now, he seems to be willing to negotiate and come up with a plan to make his country a better place. So I think you need to work with him and not just get rid of him.
I think that whatever they discuss and decide will come as a surprise because there's a lot of options on the table at this point, whether it's denuclearization, sanctions, military action. So I think that it's going to be a tricky discussion, and moving forward after the summit will be tricky with whatever plan they decide to go forward with, but I think it needs to happen.
I feel that any sort of action will have to be gradual, because if Kim Jong-un doesn't like the deal that's being proposed to him, he will probably back out of it like he has in the past many times.
Yeah, that's definitely, you really have to be, it's a tricky situation. I think I said that before, but you really have to think about this, because if you don't do anything, first of all, it's just going to get worse. So if you cancel the summit, it's just going to get worse. But second, if you take the summit the wrong way, if you jump and attack North Korea and like with words and like at the summit, he's going to, North Korea and Kim Jong-un, they're going to feel threatened. They're not going to want to do anything. They want to keep on the track that they are. So I think it's really important that Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo, and who's attending really needs to take this situation carefully, because it's not something to take lightly. Like, this is a borderline nuclear war. Like, who knows what could happen? It could result in a lot of deaths, or it could result in a lot of peace.
And I think with Donald Trump especially, it's kind of, you're not really sure how he's going to act at the summit, and if he's going to tread lightly and be good at negotiating, or if he might say something that Kim Jong-un doesn't like and feels threatened by, and he might pull out of the entire negotiation altogether.
Yeah.
North Korea's totalitarian government, it's like cruel and aggressive, so it's politically unappetizing for our leaders. So therefore, it's just their mindset is negative toward the summit.
But I think, like, with new things just coming up, I think even with that being like a fact, I think Kim Jong-un, I think he's becoming, that's the question. I think, personally, I think he has had a change of heart, and I know that's really hard to like think about, because it's such a weird thing for that to happen, just for someone who is, like Natalie said, executed his uncle and people not close to him, but his family, like things that we would never think of doing. It's really odd to think that he had a change of heart, but I think, why would he not do this? I think he's really he's starting to understand that his people are suffering. He has 25 million people in his country, and most of them don't know what's going on the outside. They don't understand that they could be living such a better life.
But do you think that at this point, after he's put them in this situation for so long, that he wants to take them out of that? I think that, like, that is what he wants. I think he wants them to not know what's going on outside so that they won't retaliate against him. So something needs to be done to take so much power out of his hands. That's what I think.
I think his main concern is the security of his nation, and I think that's why, kind of like Sam said before, that's why he developed nuclear weapons, so he could keep North Korea safe from the other more powerful countries like the United States or Russia, who have big arsenals of nuclear weapons. And I think he will only be willing to denuclearize if he feels secure that he doesn't need nuclear weapons to keep his country safe.
I think for North Korea, the nuclear weapons are nothing but leverage in this situation, because the U.S., their main goal going into this is denuclearize North Korea. North Korea has a lot of different goals that they want to get from this, so I think they're saying, like, please negotiate with us, please give us stuff, because we have these nuclear weapons. So like we want, we want help, we want aid, we want security, we want all these things. So I almost wonder if the nuclear weapons themselves aren't super relevant, except for just as like their leverage, and like this is what you want, okay, but give us this.
On that note, what do you think Kim Jong-un would be willing to, why would he be willing to negotiate away his nuclear arsenal? What kind of incentive would he need for that to happen?
I have a quote here it says it's from a North Korean defector, and it's from December 2016. And it says that he thinks that as long as Kim is in power, the country won't give up its nuclear weapons, even if it's offered $1 trillion or $10 trillion in rewards. So I think that it's going to be a really hard negotiation for Trump to give Kim Jong-un what he wants without giving up whatever we need. And I just don't know what Kim Jong-un is going to think is acceptable that would be like within the realm of like possibility for us.
Yeah, like I understand that. That makes sense. But I'm also just like going to the fact that if I were a leader of the country, if I were in his position, I think that his reign has only been 5 years. That's not a lot of time to do anything, pretty much. Like when you think about it, presidential terms only 4 years, which is also not a lot of time. And I think that as a leader of a country, how could you just keep going like it is? Like I think Kim Jong-un wanted this to happen, maybe not in not using nuclear weapons as leverage, but he like being on the inside of a country and looking out at the world and understanding, seeing South Korea, who you split apart from years before, is prospering. It's one of the has one of the biggest economic growth since, and I think it's hard for Kim Jong-un to keep going on the path that he's going, because he sees that the world around him is prospering and he's not. And I think he understands that, and he wants to meet with Donald Trump. And I don't think it's going to be that hard to persuade Kim Jong-un.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, because like for the last throughout this entire dynasty, North Korea has been passed around like a family heirloom, and I mean you can see by how quickly Trump accepted the summit that people want to work with North Korea, but Kim Jong-un has done nothing up to this point really to go towards that goal. So I'm not sure if he really is that interested in helping the citizens of his country. I think this might be a lot more of a self-interest thing.
I think it is hard to believe that he would be so willing to give up his nuclear weapons, and you have to wonder if this is just kind of like a ploy to get what he wants and to have North Korea become more powerful, keep his nuclear weapons, not have the U.S. be a threat to North Korea anymore. And I read something where a lot of South Koreans are concerned that once Kim Jong-un agrees to not target the U.S. with his nuclear weapons, the U.S. would lessen their sanctions, but then South Korea and Japan are still in danger of being targeted by these weapons.
I think the denuclearization, if it happens, is going to be a very gradual thing, if it does, because that's the source of Kim Jong-un's bargaining tool and his power, and if he gets rid of that, then he's not going to have really anything, and he's going to be at the whim of all the other nations that exist.
Yeah, but you say that he'll have nothing. I really don't think that's true, personally. I think that, like I said before, if they agree to a lot of the things that other countries want, including South Korea, United States, and Great Britain, countries like that are doing obviously a lot better than North Korea. Like personally, I think I'm living a lot. I'm a lot happier than I would be if I was in North Korea. I think he understands that. To be honest, personally, maybe I just have more faith in that, and faith that he's doing this for the right thing. Because if I were again in his place and seeing all these other countries not just prospering but looking down at him and looking at his every move, and honestly, obviously the United States could obliterate North Korea. Probably, most likely. A bunch of countries don't like you. I feel like that's just, you're excluding yourself by your own choice. I don't think he wants that anymore.
I think one reason why Great Britain and the U.S. are prospering so much because they're so powerful and because they do have nuclear weapons and they're able to use that to show their power over the other countries. And so I think that's kind of what North Korea wanted to do with the nuclear weapons and show how powerful they are and but kind of for a different reason. They wanted to show that they could maybe destroy a country versus the United States hasn't used nuclear weapons in a long time, and neither have.
Just going off on a limb here, just going into this upcoming summit, I think the biggest question is the U.S. has been posing promises like arranging energy assistance and building light water nuclear reactors, although those will be difficult to produce weapons and provide food assistance. They're making promises, and on the other hand, North Korea hasn't made a set promise. So it's what's the compromise and what's the middle of the road?
I think they have agreed to stop testing nuclear weapons for a few months. So I think that is definitely a big thing, because if they can't test them, they can't progress and develop them.
Well, that is true, but I mean, it's just the the comparison, like the portion of how many promises the U.S. made compared to North Korea. So
Do you know what this was? This part of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, like from 2005 or 2003?
I'm
like
not
that,
sure.
Or 1970. Like, was that part of that? Do you know?
I would assume
Because
so,
that I
but
just remember reading that the water, like that was part of that, and I think I'm just like trying to think like in my head, but I personally, like, I get what you're saying, like the United States is trying to like persuade North Korea kind of, but I think North Korea needs help, and I think if we want like the world to be safer, we have to give up some things, and they do too. And I think that we're trying to get North Korea. It's kind of like a treat. We're trying to like bring them in, like get them to at least want to talk about things, because I think that's we might be ignoring a huge thing. Like, this is a summit that could either start like World War III or end it, and I think that's really important to think about. Whatever we do, it's for a reason, and it's for the denuclearization of North Korea and to help us in the world.
I agree with what Natalie said before, that I think we're going to have to keep a really close eye on Kim Jong-un once we do get him to agree to something, because he has like snaked his way out of deals before, whether it be the sanctions or denuclearization. So I think that that's going to be really important and maybe hard. Also, China, I think, needs to step up, because they are supposed to be enforcing these sanctions, and they are not to the level that they should be, which is helping North Korea to grow and become more dangerous. So I think that China also should be controlled a little bit.
Yeah, and going back to what Safar said, I think it is hard to, like, if we're agreeing to do all these things for North Korea, we can't just like put all that out there and expect them to agree to do things for us too. We need to negotiate and kind of do it step by step and make sure we're getting out of it, and the world is getting out of it what North Korea is also getting out of it, and like equal.
Definitely something that I think we're seeing a lot of here is North Korea's usage of these nuclear weapons more as strategic leverage than anything else, because they've tested a lot and they've said a lot about who they're going we're gonna lay this country to ruins, turn this one into just a wasteland, like with all of our nuclear weapons, but they haven't actually launched nuclear weapons at another country yet.
Well, I think they haven't. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So I think like they're really just using it as their leverage. I think that might be why they're not willing to immediately go in and say, all right, we'll get rid of all our nukes, because they want to keep that leverage and they want to make sure that they always have it. So I think something that's definitely going to be discussed at the summit is phasing out the nuclear program. So like, maybe the U.S. lifts the sanctions and they stop developing, and then the U.S. sends some aid and they start destroying some of their nukes, and I think it's going to be something that's phased out.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure about the leverage thing, because think about it, being Kim Jong-un, like think about how big of a decision you'd make if you did it. I don't know if it's as much as leverage as much as trying to progress like the country itself, and trying to I don't know if it's, I understand the leverage part, but I don't know if it's fully that, because having an atomic bomb or doing whatever, shooting a missile at another country, that's a big deal. That's not some itty bitty little shotgun or something. Well, and obviously the other country's gonna retaliate. So I think North Korea, I don't think they're ready for that kind of move, and I think they know that.
I think that's kind of what Sam was trying to say. They're using it as leverage. Like, they never actually would hit a country,
or
because
at least at this point,
because of all the consequences. They're using it to say, we could do this, so do this for us.
Yeah.
Although I think both the U.S. and North Korea both know that this is going to be a slow process. In fact, most of the summit's not going to really accomplish much, and if it doesn't accomplish too much, then that's actually a good thing, because they've already cleared scheduling for a second day of the summit, actually.
Yeah, and I think multiple days is good, because the first time it's better to get broad outline of what you want to do, and you can't get so specific right away, because I think that's been the problem in the past. Like, some of these treaties that or agreements that we've tried to make with North Korea, we've tried to set some very specific guidelines, and North Korea has not agreed with them. So if we start broader and then kind of iron out the details slowly, I think it'll work out better than trying to make a very specific plan right away.
Another option is always accepting them as a nuclear power, which could lead South Korea, Japan, and even Taiwan to seek their own nuclear arms, and that could cause the Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons to fall apart. But that's also extremely dangerous, like you said before. If we accept them, then and we make a deal with them, South Korea and Japan will still feel in danger.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's an option to accept them as a nuclear power at this point, because when you think about it, like the U.S. doesn't have much like trade to gain. The biggest reason that they're going to the summit is to stop them from
will
becoming a nuclear power.
he ever agree to that is my question. I don't know if he will. Like that is what he's always said, that he's not going to agree to that.
But the thing is, if the
So how are you going to make him do
right,
that?
if something doesn't happen at the summit, that could end up happening,
Yeah.
like acceptance, and that's a really hard pill to swallow for Donald Trump, I could imagine. But
I
like,
think for everyone.
it could, yeah, for everyone in the United
scary.
States, yeah, because when you think about it, if I would not want to visit Japan, like that's
Even
scary
here,
if that
we could be hit
happens.
here now.
And like I think it's a possibility. Like there are a few options that could happen, and if nothing happens, like the summit almost didn't happen, like it was canceled, and that would have been acceptance. That would have been we're not doing anything.
Yeah, and I personally think that accepting North Korea as a nuclear power is less of like a compromise that could be made, and more of like what would happen if we didn't get anything worked out at the summit.
kind of
and
like defeat.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
defeat.
I'm not
Instead of-
saying like in any way that I think that is the right choice, but I'm just saying that is something that can happen,
If the
and we
summit
need to be
doesn't work.
prepared for that.
Yeah, I think we need to try like our best to negotiate because that
But it's,
is the most safe option.
but it's
I
something
think.
we need to be ready for, definitely.
Right. Yeah.
I would like to mention that in August of 2017, the Trump administration released a statement saying that, quote, all options are on the table in regards to the summit and policy changes. So we've talked about denuclearization, you've mentioned accepting North Korea as a nuclear state, but what other policy options do you think might be discussed? What would come up?
Sanctions from like trade, and like, but those are obviously, we've already tried that and it hasn't really worked out on like the things that they would need to build nuclear bombs, and they have still managed to get them, obviously.
They've violated so many UN sanctions for
Yeah.
so long that I think, even though it is like a possibility, and it's been keeping North Korea from doing anything too drastic, I think, like definitely negotiating and diplomacy is the best.
I think
way.
that
But,
on the sanctions, like I said before with China, if that is the route we're going to take, we need to figure out some way to keep China in line so that they will be able to help us make sure that North Korea is staying in line.
I think we need to convince China to stop being a helper to
Yeah.
everything. that
How
North
would
Korea
you think
wants.
that would happen?
well,
I'm not entirely sure because because for instance, China's already kind of started to turn against North Korea a little bit, because in that one missile test not too long ago, China actually did push for sanctions and actually did support them.
I do remember a while ago, there was something where I don't remember the exact details, but I think there was a North Korean holiday coming up, and China said, like, North Korea, please do not test on this day. Like we'll have to really reconsider our alliance if you do test on that day. And North Korea immediately tested on that day. So I think China is kind of starting to get fed up, but I don't think they've reached a point where they're going to stop supporting North Korea anytime soon.
yeah, I'm not sure if I don't know if they totally support them, because I have this article here on Council of Foreign Relations, and I just talked about China-North Korea relationship, and it just says that China's North Korea's most important trading partner. So if China does start pulling away, which I think they really have. There was back in I think 2017 they stopped trading for a little bit because of a certain missile attack or torpedo attack on a South Korean submarine, and China saw that, and they stopped trading for a little bit on certain things, and then they gradually brought it back in. So I think China's already really borderline, and I think it's just going to take a little push from other countries for China to fully understand the situation here.
But is that really the best option? Is it the best to? I think we need to keep North Korea in line, and I definitely think going through China is a good way to do that. But I don't think that it's the best option to try and limit North Korea from doing these things, because they are just going to continue using the nuclear weapons as leverage. We have to try and help them to become a better country and a better society and a better economy, so they won't feel like they need to depend on the nuclear weapons to be secure.
I definitely would say that the sanctions wouldn't be the way that I would try to have as my main choice to go forward, because they have done a good job of avoiding them. So I don't think that's been very effective.
That was like
But that's
Fran's
just an
question.
option, yeah.
Different things.
What
like,
would
it's just
have to
options.
change with the sanctions in order for them to become effective?
I would just say China has to help us enforce them because we're so far away from them that there isn't too much we can do from here unless like we deployed military troops, which I don't think is a good idea either.
Right, to
At
find-
this point, we have so many troops in Afghanistan and all that it just like
And it would just make North Korea like
yeah.
More
they
angry.
developed the nuclear weapons because they were afraid for their
Mhm.
country. So
Yeah.
if we add more troops or do like a blockade, they would feel like they need to keep these nuclear weapons to stay safe.
And even now, they believe that the U.S. is trying to turn them into another Libya.
Right.
I
So-
definitely think the military action, even in South Korea, near North Korea, is definitely going to be something that's going to be discussed a lot at the summit. Because I know when North Korea, they spoke out against the U.S. It was because there were some routine military exercises going on in South Korea, very close to the North Korean border. And like I said, I think Kim Jong-un is definitely very interested, mostly in his own safety and security and that of his nation. So I think something that they're definitely going to be wanting to denuclearize is going to be less military action around them.
Yeah, and I think if they agree to denuclearization, I think I read something about North Korea's like definition of denuclearization is denuclearization of the entire Korean peninsula, including any nuclear weapons that the U.S. has placed in South Korea or on the border.
There were some bombers in Guam, I think.
Yeah, and those in the vicinity of South Korea. So.
Military options has come up in discussion about, like we were saying, North and South Korea relations because of the presence of U.S. military operatives in South Korea and in surrounding areas. So how do you think the dynamic that exists currently between North and South Korea and the fact that the Korean War never officially ended, how will that play into the discussion in Singapore?
Well, I think
I
it
believe
did
they
at
signed
the
a peace treaty.
at the discussion between South Korea and North Korea, the summit in April. I think they formally ended the Korean War. It was like 65 years after any hostilities had even happened. Had happened. So I think that is ended, and I think that's a big step towards like improving the relations between North and South Korea. But I think it's still tense, and South Korea is so close to North Korea and so in range of any of their weapons that it's kind of scary for them to think about giving North Korea any more power than it has.
Do you guys think reunification is going to come up at the summit?
I mean, it might come up. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
It does.
I think
South Korea is
it's-
such an advanced country that, like, I think we were talking about it in government a few days ago. But even if, like, they reopen the borders and then like it's free movement between, they become reunified, it wouldn't like
Have
it
to
would
be
bring South
gradual.
Korea really, like, not as well as a country. Like, I wouldn't want to force South Korea to do that to itself, especially when it's
I
pretty
mean,
well.
Just
I-
like
I think-
denuclearization, it would have
economy.
to be such a gradual thing
Yeah,
if it did happen. And I don't think that's going to be Trump's call.
But I wonder if it's going to be Kim Jong-un's because.
But why would it
he-
be now?
Well, because he sees his neighbors just a little bit south of him that used to be one country, and like there's prospering so much. North Korea just is not just such an impoverished nation. I wonder if he's going to want to at some point try to join back with South Korea.
I
But
think
do you
that's definitely
Sorry. there you go.
no. I think that's definitely like a goal for the future. Like
Yeah.
like I said, he's only 5 years into his reign,
Yeah.
and so I think that's definitely like a future goal, but not in like 2 years. You can't do that. Like, no, that's not fair to South Korea.
but
And
I'm,
also,
I'm,
do
why
you
would
have
that-
I'm not
to-
even sure if he would do it because
True.
it would, because how would you be able to
The
ensure that he
governments.
stays in power? He would
Yeah.
probably have to give that up.
Why would that be? I just don't know why that would be a main focus at this summit because it's about, not that like it would be bad, but it just doesn't seem like that's what this is going to be about.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
And
nuclear,
also, I think
is the-
Unfortunately, we're just about out of time, so I'll have to hold the discussion there. Again, we invite you, our viewers, to email us your thoughts and suggestions about today's topic so we can continue this discussion in our government classroom. We thank Nauset High School's television production class and the Lower Cape TV for making this valuable experience possible for all of us. That concludes another segment of We the Students, a political discussion sponsored by Nauset Regional High School's AP U.S. Government and Politics class. I'm Francesca Galazzi. Thank you for watching.